Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to all my Muslim students. Hi everyone. Okay, let's continue with the next topic. The purpose of having this recorded lecture is to make sure that you get the idea on how you want to start the measurement for the roof. So today I give you the example. You can refer to the books as well, but this example show very detailed calculation for every item that you can see in the roof. Okay, there are few items that I would like to take note before you go for further discussion, especially where you did not understand the term in Malay. So let's look at, for example, the term bumbung is referring to the roof. Okay, so contoh 8 is actually the example of, this is the example. So I write here, this is the roof. You can refer to this book. This is pengukuran kuantiti bangunan. The only books we have in Malaysia explaining about the rules of measurement according to SMM2. Okay, even though we are going to move to another level of the SMM, that is my SMM, but then the principle of measurement are similar. So that is why I am referring to this book, and I also would like you to go through in detail regarding to every single item to be measured for this book. Okay. So number one, before we go further detail, you have to understand the drawing. Okay, number one, please look at on your left hand side, we have the roof plan. This is the roof plan. So the roof plan here are not to scale. We have section BB, section AA and section CC. So that is the section that you can see from the layout plan. For example, here you can see section AA. Where is section AA? This one. Okay, so section BB is here and section CC is at the gable. If you look at from the layout plan, if you see only straight line like this is the gable roof. The gable roof is where the brick wall is installed or is constructed until at the corner or at the center of your roof, something like this. So the gable is until this one. So this is actually all consists of the brick wall. That's why if you look at on the top, you only can see the straight line. But if you see the triangle from the layout plan, then you should know that this part is actually considered as the hip roof. Okay, this drawing is a combination of gable roof. This is the gable roof, and we have gable and hip roof because this part is where you can see the hip. At this part, you did not see any triangle, so this is the gable part, and here also you have gable. Okay, kayu curam here is not the flat roof, that is the slope roof. Okay, section BB is the detail where you can see the detail of the gutter. You also can see the detail of fascia board. Okay, and then the overhang. This part is known as overhang. Normally, when we construct the roof structure, we have to install up to the overhang so that the whole area of the layout plan had been covered until if you are standing outside the building, this part still had been covered. Okay, so what I would like to highlight is the terminology here is known as overhang. Okay, this part is known as gable. This part also known as gable. This is where you have hip because you can see the hip rafter on the top. And then for section AA, this is the cross section from the center of the roof. Okay, from the center of the roof. If you look at this dotted line is from the center of the ridge board. So that means if you look at this board, if you put at the center, that is the dimension 2387. Okay, again, you can see here, this is considered as overhang again. And then the information about the wall plate are given. And the other one is the detail of your gable. This is the gable and detail. So at the gable and detail, if you look at section view, this is the beam. This part is considered as the beam. Okay, and then inside the beam, we have the rafter. Then you have the extension of 100 mm beyond the gable end. Outside the building, you have another 100 mm. So this is about 100 mm, but the rest of the overhang is considered as 500 mm. Okay, now I also would like you to highlight here that the size of the rafter and the wall plate are exactly different. Why? You have to understand the term in terms of how the construction is, because if you look at from this section AA, this is how the rafter looks like. So the rafter is designed or is installed in such a way where the horizontal is shorter compared to the vertical. That is how you get 50 times 100, something like this. So the concept is similar like the concept of construction of the beam. You did not have the beam that is the horizontal longer than the deep or the depth of the beam. But for the wall plate, because the wall plate is used to support or to give the jointing between the rafter and the brick wall or the beam, okay, it depends, because this structure is having the column, so they have the roof beam. If the structure doesn't have the column, means everything is attached directly to the brick wall. So in order to attach, they must have something that is called as the wall plate. Okay, so that is the reason why the wall plate is having opposite design as compared to the beam. Okay, what is the meaning of opposite design? Horizontally, the one is wider. So this is 100, this is 75. That is something that I would like everyone to take note and understand. Okay? Okay, now we move to the overview of the item that you have to measure. You can go through all this calculation one by one according to the lecture note. This is the example, but I would like you to take note on certain part in terms of taking off list, or I would like you to identify what are the mistakes that have been taken, how the dimension is being taken from the drawing, and so on. So here you also been given with the example of taking off list. Okay, the taking off list, you can see here there are a few information about A, B, and C. Okay, in terms of the item to be measured, you can follow the numbering. You can follow the numbering here, 1, 2, 3. But at the end of the day, you have to identify what are the items that are missing that is actually possible to be measured, but it is not available. So that is something that is a check and balance that you have to check. Not to say that this book is wrong, but maybe misunderstood by the people who interpret, or maybe missing, considered as missing item. Okay, look at number 1. Plate, then they put A as wall plate. Here, this is to show that they are example that there is only one item for the wall plate. Okay, but then if you have different sizes, you can put in another sub item or subcategory. Item number 2, we put here the author put rafter and ceiling joist, but actually these two items can be grouped together under pitch roof members. So A and B is something that you have to show in the side cast, where at the end of the day you can total out, provided that the size are similar. Okay, item number 4 is about pitch roof members as well, but because the size are different, so the ridge board is measured separately. If the size are similar, you can group under pitch roof members. For example, in this case, rafter and ceiling joists are similar in sizes, so they put in the similar item. Okay, item number 3, just want you to take note. In case you already go through all this calculation, but you didn't see any information about hip rafter and valley rafter, so this author actually put in the assumption, but they didn't mention the assumption that the hip and the valley rafter are having bigger sizes as compared to the common rafter or rafters itself. Jet rafter, common rafter are under rafters. Okay, and then a hip and valley rafter, they are having similar sizes, so they put here 50 times 150, so bigger a little bit compared to another type of rafter. Okay, so I just want to ensure that everyone did not find this information, because you only can see the size in the taking off list but not in the detail. So this is for you to take note and for the author to give example. Okay, item number 5, rod surface on the rafters. This one, the rod surface, you have to refer to the girth. If the girth are similar, you can group together. But in this case, definitely the girth are different because the size are different. So item number 5 and number 6 is actually according to different girth. Rod surface on the rafter, 50 times 100. This one 50 times 150. So where is the position where you have to measure the rod surface? Is only at the side. I changed color. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so another one is 1, 2, and 3. So if you try to total up this curve, for example, you get 150 plus 150 plus 50. So this one is about 350 mm curve. But if you total up the curve from the cross-section view for the rafters, you will get 100 times plus 100, that is 200 plus 50. This one, the curve is only 250. So different curve for rod surface you have to measure separately. Why? Because SMM state that the item is required to be measured separately according to curve, or you can say the word shall be described. That means curve must be described in the description. So item number 1 until number 6 are all covered under construction, or we can say this one as the structure. This book use the word construction, but then if you want to put in the heading, you can put the same word, or you can use the term roof structure. Okay, so this is the sub element. The element is roof, and this is the sub element. Okay, number 2, the sub element is roof covering, or some engineer use the word finishes. So can be used similar terminology. Okay, now let's look at the first item under roof covering. So RF here is roof. Okay, let's say you are not be able to trace. This is the roof tiles, and then I zoom it so that you can see clearly. So roof tile. Number 2, insulation. In the lecture, you can see that insulation have 3 different categories. So when I ask you how many items to be measured, you have to take note that it should be more than 26, because in this example, there are certain items that is shown in the group, but in a taking off list, you should have more than that. Okay, this is one of the example, insulation. So how many items to be measured under insulation? Basically, there are 3. Number 1, you have glass wool, or maybe a fiber. So that is number 1. I just put glass wool. This is example. And then to cover that, you have aluminium foil. You have to cover with the aluminium foil. And then to support this glass wool or fiberglass or aluminium foil, you need to have the mesh. Or in my example previously, I used the term, we normally use the word mesh reinforcement or chicken wire mesh. That is to support so that the glass fiber or the fiberboard is not falling down. It is sufficiently being covered with this one. So in this case, you should take note as well. The insulation have more than 1 item. You should have at least 3 items unless you are given another detail. Okay. Item number 9. Item number 9. Item number 10. Number 11. Number 12. Number 13. Okay, this 9 until 13. This one has to be measured under roof covering. You can refer to section L. Okay, but this one, all of this has to be measured as extra over. So please take note and refer to the example. This is very simplified version of the taking off list. But then if you need to prepare your own taking off list according to our next studio, make sure you write down EO or extra over for hip tiles, extra over for birch tile, extra over for ridge capping, and so on. Okay, now number 14, this is optional compared to another option where you did not have valley tiles. So it's either valley tiles versus flashing. Okay, so if there is no information about valley tiles, we shall assume that we use flashing. We use flashing other than valley tiles because valley tiles are not really common unless you are given the detail. Okay, so if you did not measure valley tiles or is no information about valley tiles, we assume that all valley part under the covering has to be measured under flashing. So you can take the length similar as the length of your valley rafter for this one. with the addition of the extended part, or else you have to measure the valley rafter or valley tiles separately, not to measure flashing. So this one will be either one. Okay, either one. These are the two options that are available in the construction of the slope roof. Okay, number 15. This is what I did mention. They are boarding. Okay, but remember the fascia board is available in drawing. If you look at the previous part, the fascia board is available when you can see in drawing number 2 or section BB. These are the information of the fascia board, 25 times 150. But this is not the only board that you have. Okay, so normally you can see at the gable roof or at the gable end. Okay, here at the gable end as well. So sorry, this is not gable, this is the straight part. This is the hip part. Okay, so this is the only gable. Okay, so at the gable, if you look at from this cross-section view, we have verge tile covered. So below the verge tile, we have what we call as barge board. So this item is missing or is not being measured. You can take the same quantity as the length of the common rafter plus the extended part. The extended part is the projected part. This is the projected part, this part. Okay, so logically, if you want to measure the length of the half half of the roof covering, you can take the same dimension as the common rafter, because this is actually common rafter, but with the addition of 50 mm projected, or this is a projected length from the original common rafter, because the common rafter is until here. Okay, projected means you have to consider thickness of the fascia board plus the 50 mm projection. Okay, this one are clearly mentioned or stated in every single item that you can go through after this. So please go through this one by one. Okay, go back to the taking of list. Okay, so remember for the board, you have another additional item known as barge board. Okay, so we have additional of barge board here, and then for the insulation, because now you only can see one item, so remember plus another two items, because maybe insulation here is only aluminum foil, but you have the glass wool plus chicken wire mesh, or we can say maybe mesh reinforcement or something like fabric reinforcement. So here, definitely you can see there are more than 26 items. 26 plus 2 plus 1 barge board here. So already 29 items. Okay, next one. Number 16, we have painting. So this painting is depending on what kind of painting, and that one is covered under which part. So the barge board is covered under covering. The eave board is covered under rainwater downpipe. But then because this book or this author would like to give you the list of the item according to the different clauses and different section, because painting is under section U, boarding is under section M. Okay, so they group together according to the section. That's why they didn't put whole or fully under which category, but then you should know that. Okay, so I put here the eave board should be under eave board, fascia board is under rainwater downpipe. Okay, but remember this one is under section M, under boarding. Okay, the barge board is under covering. You will see this one under or below the verge tile. So this is under covering. Okay, for this painting, again, you have to refer to what kind of painting, and this painting is for barge board or for the rainwater downpipe. If the painting that you can see here, this painting are referring to the eave board only, so this one should fall under rainwater downpipe. Because in this taking off list, no information about the barge board, so automatically this one are referring to the painting for the rainwater downpipe category, that is eave board, or in this case the eave board is also known as fascia board. Okay, right, let's go to the last part. The last part here, you can see the last category under rainwater under roof is rainwater downpipe. Okay, so under rainwater downpipe, we have the gutter. Don't forget the if board. Okay, and then the gutter. You can go back to section BB to see the details of the gutter. The detail of the gutter here is given as 100 mm diameter, half round UPVC gutter. UPVC stand for unplasticized vitrified chloride. Okay. So please write the full sentence. You can refer to the example. You can also refer to any catalog available for the UPVC detail, but this one is information for the gutter. So the stop end, the bands with outlet and the balloons grating. Okay, all of this, if you are not be able to see or identify in detail, you can go to the last part of the lecture notes. There are a lot of components of the rainwater downpipe. But in this case, there is no information about the numbers of the point for rainwater downpipe. So what they do is, this number actually depending on how many numbers of the pipe available. So the stop end, the bands, all of these are actually affected by the numbers of the pipe work. As there is no information, you can go to the detailed measurement after this. They give you the numbers. That is only based on assumption. Okay, so please go through all of this in detail. I would like to highlight few items available for you to go through and check. Okay, and for you to discuss among the group member. You may divide the item by item by a group member. Maybe Farah, you will focus on this item, or maybe wall plate only. Lu, maybe you can focus on maybe rafter only. So after that, you discuss what is wrong with this measurement. Do you know where this measurement come from? Where you want to get the length and so on. Okay, so please make sure that you refer to the drawing before you identify this one. Okay, I would like you to make sure that you understand where you want to get the internal corner. Remember, for the wall plate, the jointing is like this. Okay, so what is the meaning of this one? You can refer to the example. What is the meaning of this one? That means there is no center to center line. The calculation must be end to end. Okay, and the calculation must be done according to the outside line of the wall plate. Okay, so if I would like to refer back to the drawing, if you did not understand how you're going to get 11 plus plus 9, please go back to the layout plan. Okay, you can refer back to this layout plan where you get 11. This is 11. This is 9, and make sure you measure end to end. If you look at this drawing in detail, this measurement is until at the end. But then this part, when you times by 2, 11 times by 2, this part had been missing. This part had been missing. So that is known as internal corner. Okay, if you still confused with this one, try to measure one by one. Let's say this is 11. This is 5. Okay, this is 9. So this one is 5. But remember, this 5 is until this dotted line. But here, how much? Here, how much? Then you know that this part is missing. This part also missing. That is where you get 11. That is where you get the additional of internal corner in this measurement. Okay, this measurement. This part. How to get the internal corner? Why you have to add in the 100? Because the calculation is taken end to end. Okay, and the next item you can go through. This is the example, and the next item we have the they show you the calculation of the rafters. So part A and part B. Okay, for this one, I just don't want you to get confused. Even though they are reason why the numbers of the rafter have been deduct into 1. Okay, but I would like you to go back to the normal mathematics rule. So make this one to be plus, not deduct. 20 plus 1. Okay, then you can see how many numbers of area A, how many numbers of area B, and then how you want to get the length. Basically, we measure according to house span. what is the pitch given, and then what is the center line, why you have to deduct half of the center line. And then this one is something that I also would like to highlight. The tab n is the additional length that you have to add in every time you measure for the slope cutting of the rafter. Or if you refer back to all this layout plan, every time you have to cut the timber, you have to cut in slope length. This one, okay? This is the slope part, slope cutting. So if you need to measure every single item for the slope component except for the ridge, you have to add in tab n. We call this one as tab n. So if I go back to this next page, then you can see the addition of the 75 mm. Where is the next page? Sorry, page number 3. Okay, that is the tab n. Please take note on this information. And this is also available in the notes if you want to read further. This is one of the examples. So this part, the timber is not cut straight like ridge. So this part you have to add in 75. That is the standard addition of the length if no information given about the tab n. If there are information given about the tab n, then you have to add in according to the specification. Okay, whatever size, this is the common assumption length for the tab n. After you finish measurement for the comma rafter, you can see the answer had been written. Okay, so this one, please make adjustment after you understand about the numbers of the comma rafter. This one's supposed to be 21, not 19. Okay, and then at hip, remember you have to add in the comma rafter. Say this is your comma rafter. You have another one here. This is the length of the comma rafter at hip. So at hip you have to add in, and then after you finish measurement for the rafter, you can take the measurement for the ceiling joist. Again, you have to refer to the cross section to get the length of the ceiling joist from the house span. That one from section AA or section BB. Go through after this. Not BB, but AA or CC. Okay, and then after that, you can see the bracket here. This one means to show you that the hip and valley are having different sizes, so they have to measure separately. Okay, this is the guideline on how you want to get the length of the valley rafter. So from the layout plan, basically how you want to get the length of the valley or the hip rafter. Okay, previously you already get the length of the comma rafter, that is A. So now you want to get this B. This is the valley rafter. Okay, so this is B. So now let's say you want to get C. What is the normal formula? The normal formula is comma rafter square plus comma rafter square plus B square and find the square root. You get the C. That is the normal formula. Okay, make sure A is comma rafter, yeah, because we would like actually to find the slope length, not the length on plan. If you take the length on plan for A, that is definitely wrong. So you can go through the detailed measurement or in the detailed measurement or the sample given for this one. This is what I did mention. This is the rafter. This is the house span or length on plan. That is how you get the hip rafter. But don't forget, as what I did mention just now, if you get the length, you have to add in 75 mm tab n, but this answer is not being added with 75 mm. Just want you to take note, this one must be consistently added. Okay, so this is the hip rafter, and the length of the hip rafter, this one, and the length of the valley rafter are exactly similar. Logically, they are similar because the slope are similar. Then after that, they show you the calculation of the ridge board. Okay, so the ridge board, where is the ridge board? The ridge board is here. This is the ridge board. This is also the ridge board. You can see what is the dimension from part A, the part B. Okay, so this is part A, and the smaller one is part B. Right. After you finish all this calculation, you can go through how to get the measurement for the rod surfaces. this is the rod surfaces as what I did mention to you just now. Number one, they show you the girth calculation for the rafter because this is 100, this is 100, this is 50. So what is the girth that is exposed? On the top of this, we did not consider for the girth or calculation because on the top of this will be covered by the roof tile. So this part, left, right, and the bottom are actually exposed. So we have to carry out the rod surfaces. Rod surfaces here means maybe use the sandpaper or any machine to make the surface of the sawn timber to be rod or smooth or nice, neat finishing. Okay, so that is the purpose of measurement for this item. The item is required to be measured in meter according to the girth. So if you know that the first one is 250 mm girth, that means you have to measure differently with the exposed part that is required to be measured for the valley. So if I refer to this example of the drawing, let's say this is the dotted line. Okay, this is the dotted line. So the first rod surface is actually the rod surface for the comber rafter or the rafters. Okay, the rod surface for the second one is only for the small part, that is for the valley and for the hip. So how you want to know this? This one must be the exposed part. So, or when I say exposed part, this is at the overhang only, because only at the overhang the timber or the rafters are exposed. Internally, they will be covered with the ceiling and the brick wall. Okay, so measure the rod surface at the exposed area only. This is the example. This is the calculation shown at the rafter, at the rafter, at the hip, and then the ceiling joint is the length. For the valley rafter, you can see the curves are different. So they also measure the exposed part, but at the overhang where you can see the valley and the hip. So the length is different. Okay. After you finish all this rafter, you can go to the detailed calculation of the covering. So for this covering, this is what I did mention. At the projection over gutter, you already get the length of the rafter. After that, you have to add in the projection over the gutter because that is the length that is not being included in the length of the comber rafter. Look at this, drawing number 1. Okay, so when you measure the comber rafter, you only measure until this part. Okay, but then in order to get the actual length from this one, sorry, I draw again. Okay, if I draw this one from the center, okay, something like this, right? So this is your ridge board and this is the pitch. So if you want to take the dimension, okay, if I draw in 3D, something like this, we have to take the length on plan. This is length on plan times with X. X is the comber rafter plus the projection here. Okay, to measure in detail, you can refer back to this calculation of the covering as what I did mention. You have to measure by taking the length and add with the projection over gutter. But what is missing here? You have to add in the thickness of fascia board as well. So please take note on this missing part. Even though this one is just like 25 mm, but if you have more and if the size is bigger, then it will affect the accuracy and principle of measurement. So don't forget to add in 0.025, the thickness of fascia board. And then after that, this is the comber rafter. This is the length on plan, area A and area B. Remember, if you want to measure the covering, we have to cut into into the simple shape. So this is part A, this is part B. And also please take note, when we measure half span. That means we measure this one first. After you finish this one, then you have to times 2 because they are 2 span. It just seems like where you fold the simple A4 paper, you fold into 2, but you remain open a little bit. So how you want to get this area? Okay, so you have to take this length. This is the comber rafter plus projection plus fascia board. Then this is the length. here, length on plan. So if you times, you get the area. Why you have to times 2? Because we measure half span only. Then after that you finish, you get the area for part B. Okay, after that we have to measure the insulation. This item had been shown in detail according to taking of list. A layer of double-sided aluminum foil. Okay, and then this one, this is actually MS. If I put here, it should be MS. MS means you have to measure separately. You have to measure aluminum foil separately. You have to measure the stranding wire separately. So they are actually 3 items to be measured here. Okay, you can take the same measurement as the area of the roof covering. This is why you see this symbol. Okay, and then after that, after you finish all the roof covering area, you have to measure whatever additional item for the roof covering that is required to be measured as extra over. Number 1 is for the hip tiles. Number 2 for the verge tile. And after that, you can see the ridge tiles. And for the fair ends, where is the fair end? Remember, the fair end is the jointing between this one, the jointing between the ridge and the hip. So you have fair end. Then you can see from the drawing how many fair ends. Every time you have the ridge connected with the hip, that is where we have fair end. Sorry, that is not fair end. Sorry, that is apex style. Okay, the fair end, I make correction. Scared that you confused. This one is apex style. Okay, the fair end, I use different color. The fair end is the end of your hip. So sometimes the fair end also known as hip iron. Sorry, I wrongly say just now. So fair end is equal to the hip iron, and the apex style is the jointing between the ridge and the hip. So this one you have 3 way. 1, 2, and 3. So we have to put 1 here. Okay, next one, this is the calculation for the flashing. You can take the same measurement as the length of your, same measurement as your valley rafter or the hip rafter. Okay, after that, we go to the rainwater down pipe. You can see in detail the detail of the fascia board. If you did not know how to get 2 times 2 times 0.5, you can go through one by one, because the fascia board here is around the perimeter of the building. So you can try to do one by one. 11 plus overhang plus 9 plus overhang again. Then you can check how many overhang that you have to add in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, after that we finish the fascia board. We measure for the painting. Again, for the painting, you have to refer to the girth. If the girth is more than 300 mm, you have to measure in meter square. If less, you have to measure in meter only. So this is the example where you have more than 300 mm, you have to measure in meter square. Okay, after that, we also have to measure the painting for the exposed part. This is the exposed part for the rafter. This quantity also can be taken from label for rod surface, from the first category of the measurement, rod surface item. This one are exactly similar. Okay, but then the girth are less, the girth for all these components less than 300 mm. So you have to measure in meter only. That's why you can just take the length. But remember, this one must be clearly corrected. Okay, next one. Next one. Example for the rafter. Think. Okay,